So my name's Dave Bisceglia. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Tap Lab. We're a mobile gaming studio based in Boston, Mass, creators of Tiny Tycoons. We're actually here at Casual Connect showing off our new title, Bigfoot Hunter, at the Indie Prize Showcase. So if you want to go hunt some big feet, you can go find us over there. All right, let's get into it. I'm here today to talk to you guys about how we can all be applying game jam principles to improve our dev process and to be more innovative. When I say game jam, I mean exactly what you're thinking. A bunch of developers getting together and making jams. Also making games on the side. I didn't mean jams, but you get it. So, we can have these major public events like Global Game Jam, as well as internal jams. And this is when you're really focusing on prototyping new concepts and new features. And jams are often themed to focus on new technologies. So new software, new hardware, as well as setting rules or, artificial limitations that force developers to be more creative. So, the game jam methodologies here. There's certain principles that make the game jam process so effective. First off, in a game jam environment, no idea is too strange, too stupid, or too difficult. Divergent thinking is required. And game jams are defined by limited dev cycles or shorter dev cycles that force you to innovate. They force you to iterate quickly and to control scope. So be sure to, when you're prototyping your concepts, prototype them at the simplest level possible and eliminate any features that aren't essential to your core concept. Also, get outside feedback as soon as possible. Pull in your friends and fans to test your prototypes during your jams. And then also pull in new people whenever possible. Game jams are a great opportunity to collaborate with folks outside of the studio. We often bring in our mentors and friends to join in on the process. And it's a great way to get a bunch of great minds working on early stage projects. It's also a great way to find talent. So our buddies at Vlambeer, the guys who created Super Crate Box and Ridiculous Fishing, they actually participated in in Mojang's 72-hour Mojam. And during that process, they actually brought in an audio designer they had just met, and they wound up hiring him to do all the audio on that game, which became the Steam hit Nuclear Throne. And I actually asked Rami, one of the founders of Vlambeer, how they apply game jam principles to their dev process. And he told me that nearly every single one of their game concepts has come from an internal jam. So game jams don't have to end when all the devs pack up and head home. In fact, these principles can and should be applied to your dev process. Get access to dev kits and set aside time for your team to start exploring new technologies. If you've got a difficult tech or design challenge, set aside time to jam on it. And we do that at the Tap Lab all the time, and it really works. And if you've got new features, don't rush into them. Use game jam principles to prototype multiple versions of those features before you ask your artists for final artwork. Trust me, they will appreciate that. Also, there's a bunch of larger studios. We've got Ubisoft, DNA, Harmonix. These guys are starting to do internal jams to identify new concepts for future games, as well as testing out new features for existing games, and as a tool for recruiting. And game jams can also be a much-needed break from a long dev cycle, and your team will return to that project kind of reinvigorated with new perspectives and better attitudes. One of my favorite examples of an internal jam comes from our friends at Double Fine. They had been working on the same project for 3 years and decided to take a break. And they divided the team into 4 teams for a 2-week game jam they called Amnesia Fortnight. And it was so successful that it actually became an annual event, and nearly every game they've released since then was originally a prototype at one of those jams. So you can see how impactful this can be for a studio. And there's tons of other examples, but you guys get the idea. So we're all here at Casual Connect because we're passionate about making games. And yes, we're all here to make money, and we all know it'd be much easier to, take existing games over to mobile or to fast follow or clone successful games. But as developers, it's up to us to move the industry forward. And there's new technologies and emerging technologies like wearables, beacons, VR, and these could be huge opportunities for gaming. But to build games for these platforms, we're going to face new technical and design challenges. And I'm confident we can solve those challenges. We just have to change our way of thinking. We have to embrace these new technologies and start applying game jam principles to innovation. Now, I need to make clear that innovation alone is not enough. It's our job as developers to identify these new opportunities, but most importantly, to develop truly fun experiences for our players. So location-based games have been around for over a decade, and it all actually started back in 2001 with Pac-Manhattan, when a group of developers got together and turned the streets of Manhattan into a massive game of Pac-Man. The cool part was they did it all on feature phones, and we've certainly come a long way since then. I think Ingress from Google's Niantic Labs is a great example. The game requires you to actually get outside and move in physical space to interact with other players and to actually take over these beacons throughout the town. And they actually just announced the game for iOS last week, so it's definitely worth checking out. At the Tap Lab, we've built our own location-based tech and games that actually let players virtually travel around the world and interact with their favorite places. We're also really excited about indoor location. Last year, Apple acquired a company called Wi-Fi Slam for their indoor location. And we're not seeing that tech and hardware yet, but I think we will very soon. And this stuff's going to let us knock down the front door and build games with maps of indoor locations. On my walk over here, I was thinking like turning my house into a game world, and I can have enemies hiding in certain rooms, obstacles laid out along the way. It's basically all of my childhood fantasies coming to life. And when Apple announced iBeacon last year, we instantly started thinking of interesting applications for gaming. In true indie form, we actually set aside time to do an internal jam. And we experimented with in-store beacons. As you see on the slide behind me, when you walk into a location, by the way, our game here is Tiny Tycoons. It's like a location-based empire-building game where you actually can claim ownership of real places. And when you walk into an iBeacon-equipped location, you would get a push notification with the name, owner, and price of that property, as well as a meaningful action you can take in the game. We also built like local multiplayer matchmaking. Actually, do any of you guys own a 3DS? Okay, so you guys know Street Pass. So Street Pass is a feature on the 3DS that lets you interact with nearby players to basically play games together and exchange resources. Well, we basically built Street Pass for iOS in a weekend using iBeacon. And there's 200 million iOS devices out there right now with iBeacon. And if any two devices have the same app installed, they're now intimately connected. And there's big brands out there like Major League Baseball, Target, Macy's that are starting to roll out beacons in their locations. And soon they'll be looking for new ways to engage the consumer. And gaming could be a major driver there. So these days, when you hear the words virtual reality, the first thing you probably think of is Oculus. Oculus is awesome. We have a dev kit. We love it. But there's a bunch of other awesome stuff happening out there. Obviously, there's Sony's Project Morpheus, there's Ant VR, among others. And at the Tap Lab, we've been experimenting with creating lightweight virtual reality experiences on mobile. So we're actually using the accelerometer and the gyroscope to create motion controls that let the player feel like they're peering into a virtual world. And this idea actually came to us from a game jam. We all grew up playing a game called Pokemon Snap. And you guys out there remember that? All right. Yes, there we go. So, we were playing it one day and said, why the hell doesn't this exist on mobile? And for those of you who don't know, Pokemon Snap basically is a photo safari game for N64. It was a big success, and a lot of us played it. We looked at our phones and we realized, okay, this is a gaming console that's also a camera and has sensors in it that we can use to make the device the controller. So we knew what to do. 24 hours later, we had a prototype for our new game. It's Bigfoot Hunter, the one we're showing off here. And by the way, we're not the only ones thinking this way. Google recently announced Google Cardboard, which actually lets you transform your Android device into a VR headset using foldable cardboard and a couple lenses. It's no Oculus, but it's a great example of how quickly VR is becoming a reality. So this is a screenshot from one of my favorite Freddie Wong videos, and it's kind of a vision for the ultimate augmented reality experience. Unfortunately, this is still a couple years off, but exciting nonetheless. And most augmented reality experiences today kind of feel like a cheap gimmick. Fortunately, there's a lot of up-and-coming software and hardware that shows a lot of promise. And actually, Google released Project Tango, which is another great example. It's actually like a next-gen hardware device or next-gen mobile device that has human-like understanding of space and motion. And that's going to allow us to do much more compelling stuff with augmented reality in the future. Another way to think of it is when we've got detailed 3D maps of our surroundings, as developers, we'll be able to actually integrate assets into reality rather than just placing overlays and blocking reality. Now, Google Glass also could present huge opportunities for gaming. I expect the first gaming applications will be complementary to core gaming applications on other platforms. So imagine playing a game on your TV, your computer, your mobile device, and you've got your heads-up display on glass. There's a bunch of companies out there, including MindPirate, that are focused specifically on making games for glass. I'm really excited to see what those guys come up with. So, mobile devices are revolutionizing entertainment, even in the living room, with second screen gaming. And Ubisoft speaks extensively on this. They've actually got 4 titles that have robust mobile counterparts. And that's everything from Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed, The Division, The Crew. And cross-platform gaming means giving your players a connected universe. And more so today, for a lot of people, mobile will be their first entry point. Another thing that I expect to see in the next few years here is second screen gaming being applied to indie gaming. Now that it's so much easier to get access to consoles through XBLA, PSN, and Ouya, as well as with the proliferation of cross-platform dev tools like Unity, I think we'll see a lot more indies offering mobile counterparts to their console games and vice versa in the near future. So obviously there's a lot of hype around wearables and smartwatches these days. Due to the limited screen real estate, the first gaming experiences on these devices will most likely be simple games, or as I said earlier, heads-up displays or notification centers for games we're playing on other platforms. They could also be input devices or controllers for games we're playing on other screens. And there's a bunch of great examples of apps that gamify fitness. One of my favorites is Zombie Run, which tracks how fast you're running as you're running away from a virtual horde of zombies. And I expect we'll see even more creative experiences like that when this next wave of wearables hits the market. So I don't know about you guys, but I love robots, and when I first heard of Romo, the robot that basically brings your phone to life, and Sphero, which is kind of an intelligent orb that you can control with your phone, I instantly pre-ordered them for me and some of my robot-loving friends. And with the just extreme and incredible success of integrated smart toys like Skylanders, Disney Infinity, and Telepods, I mean, that's really a testament to the potential for peripherals. And there's other examples too, like Archie Drive here, which are kind of iPhone-controlled RC cars that were demoed or debuted at WWDC last year. These could reinvent existing genres as well as create entirely new categories on the App Store, which is a great transition into my final point here. I challenge all of us to start incorporating Game Jam principles into our dev process, to start embracing these new frontiers, and let's all work together to move the industry forward. Thanks so much, and I'll take some questions. Yes, in the front.
I think you kind of touched on it a little bit with the second screen slide.
Yeah.
But you have these services like Sony, they purchased Gaikai and they have the PlayStation Now.
Yes.
Do you think that's going to like streaming services will change how we approach console gaming? So maybe we'll have more cross-platform things like that?
Definitely. Especially, I mean, with vice versa, Twitch kind of opening it up on mobile for mobile games. I think we'll see streaming coming from all platforms and hopefully accessible from all platforms. Yes?
I'm an instructor at San Francisco's Academy of Art, and
Very cool.
we have a rapid game development course.
Nice.
That's gotten so popular, we now have rapid game development 2, and we're probably going to add rapid game development 3. After years of trying it different ways and trying different things, I finally just said it's all 2-week game jams.
Nice. Yeah.
And I spin the Wheel of Doom, and that picks the topic.
Yes.
And it goes from the range of a dog to a pile of
Yeah.
and they have to, that's the theme, right?
Yeah.
And the first week, they spend focused just on finding the fun. So this is the Nintendo way of doing development.
So huge, yeah.
All they can do is find fun.
Yeah.
And then the second week, it follows the Gama Sutra GDC talk about juice.
Yeah.
And so you probably...
I've seen that one, yeah.
Right? And so that's all that we do, 1 week and 1 week.
Yeah.
And then we spin the Wheel of Doom again.
It's beautiful. Yeah, so building and polish, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so that's huge. And I think the idea of having that set time frame means so much. But also your point about having these kind of limitations that force you to be more creative. I'm sure you guys heard of the game Cannibalt. That's a game that came out of a game jam. And I think the theme was bare minimum. And if you've played that game, there's just one thing you do. You just tap the screen to jump.
It's successive, so the first one has just one criteria.
Yeah.
The second semester is supposed to have 2 criteria, like the game has to be multiplayer and it has
That's
to be
cool.
a dog.
Yeah.
And then the third semester, the students want me to really be hard on them. I have no idea.
Yeah. The trifecta, that's what's going to happen. Well, no, so another game would be like Titan Souls. That's a game that came out of a game jam where they said you only get one. And for those who've played it, I mean, it's one arrow that you're shooting, and you actually have to go pick up the arrow before you can shoot it again. But it's just so insanely hard, but so fun, and that theme resulted in that game. And don't be afraid to theme your internal jams. We do that all the time. Any other questions? All right. Well, I'm around. I've got a card if you guys want to chat about, the Tap Lab, our process. I'd love to learn more about what you guys are working on and see if we can work together. So have a great show. Thanks again.